Hey guys, it's Sickness Y here with a build video. This build video is going to be about Hammer Greatsword. Hammer Greatsword is a spec I really like to play. I've played it since Guild Wars 2 launch, I think. And I think it's a fun spec. I think it's quite good in world versus world roaming, both outnumbered and 1v1 fights. And yeah, I'm going to show you my version of it. I'm going to take a look at the traits with you guys first. Well, if we look at the general traits of a warrior, then I'd say if you want to play Hammer Greatsword, you're gonna spec 6 in defense to get Dogged March, Cleansing Ire, and Merciless Hammer. You will also pretty much always spec 3 in discipline for fast hands. In my opinion, this is the single best trait in the entire game. When we look at the defense line, you also get a few minor traits. Thick Skin, which gives you extra armor when your health is above 90%, which is never, so this trait is pretty much useless. And it also makes it look like your toughness is actually higher than it really is. The second minor trait in defense, Adrenal Health, is pretty good actually. It helps with sustaining. It adds a little bit of health regeneration depending on your adrenaline bar. Don't rely on this too much because you will be using your adrenaline quite often. The third minor trait is absolutely awesome, Armored Attack. If you spec into the defense line, it's almost always worth taking this trait. You gain power based on your toughness. 10% conversion rate, so any toughness you get, 10% of that gets added to power. Adding to our power is a good thing. I mean, it's more damage, right? So yeah, that's a defense trait line. In discipline, you also get another nice minor trait in versatile rage. You gain adrenaline on weapon swap. You swap every 5 seconds, so this is one of the main adrenaline gaining tools you have. And it's passive, you know, you don't have to do anything but weapon swap, and you're gonna do that anyway. So for the first trait we're going to pick in discipline, I will go with Warrior Sprint. You are double melee spec, so it's pretty important that you stick to your target. This trait is actually really good on a warrior. It's probably good on any build because you will always spec 3 in discipline in my opinion, but it's especially useful on this build, and that's why I would say it's a must as well. So this leaves us with 5 trait points that we can spend freely, and I've decided to put another 1 in discipline to get Destruction of the Empowered. This is a pretty awesome trait that just boosts your damage to a higher level. It's as easy as that. It gets a 3% damage increase for every boon on your target. The other 4 points are spent on arms. Forceful Greatsword is, in my opinion, quite a strong trait. Usually people think that slashing power in strength is stronger. I guess it adds a little bit more raw DPS, but I like stacking Might. Might did recently get nerfed, but Might still adds damage. You also notice that this build crits a lot. It has a incredibly high crit chance, so that goes well with this trait as well. You can see that the Might duration is boosted by 30%, which is because of the Runes of Hulbreck, which I'll come to in a second. But this trait is taken mostly because of the recharge reduction. 20% recharge reduction on all Greatsword skills. I also take Furious Reaction as the other trait. The adept trait. Furious Reaction gives you 10 seconds of Fury and 10 seconds of Vigor whenever you take damage greater than a certain percentage of your maximum health, which is 10%. 10% of your maximum health with World vs. World stacks is going to be 23k, so 2.3k health. That's not a lot of damage. I mean, anything but a pure condition, dire, whatever build is always going to hit you for this amount of damage sooner or later. So it's passive, you don't have to think about it, and it will add to your Fury uptime. The extra Vigor also helps, but this is taken mostly for the Fury. The other traits in arms are decent, I would say. The first minor one is Precise Strike's chance to cause bleeding on critical hits. This just adds another layer of conditions, which is useful because you will be applying both cripple and weakness through a fierce blow on your hammer. Weakness is actually really good in my opinion. It helps with mitigating direct damage and it allows us to not spec stuff like endure pain. Yeah, your opponent not being able to cleanse this will put a serious dent in their damage capabilities if they're direct damage effect, of course. So more bleeding, it's good. It's not your main source of damage, of course. It's just another little bit of damage, which is always nice. The second minor trait in arms is critical burst. Burst skills have an increased critical chance, and well, this is a pretty useful trait, I'd say. It's what helped me make this build. Your Earthshaker, when you are fully stacked and have Fury active, then your Earthshaker will have a 90% crit chance. This is huge and helps with the versatility of the build. So yeah, this is a trade spread. I'm gonna take a look with you guys at the gear. So first of all, the armor is all Zerk and uses runes of Hulbrak. The added power is really good, and of course the minus 20% condition duration is also well, quite important. Again, your double melee spec and Hulbrak along with the Dogged March allows you to get a minus 53% duration on movement conditions. So, moving on to the Greatsword. On the Greatsword I use Zerk stats as well, and Superior Sigil of Fire and Superior Sigil of Air. This combination is incredibly dangerous. It allows you to do a lot of burst damage with your Greatsword alone, and well, it's generally quite surprising in any fight, I would say. People, well, a lot of people actually do use it, but I don't see it very often used on warriors. And well, most people when they see you swinging a hammer, they're gonna try and avoid all hammer stuns and everything. Whereas the Greatsword on this build really does, well, maybe even the majority of the damage, but a lot of burst damage for sure. So Sigil Fire, Sigil of Air, a lot of fun. And high crit chance also means that they're always gonna proc, almost off of cooldown every time, I would say. On Hammer, I use Sigil of Impact. This is a great sigil on Hammer, I would say. You're gonna stun and knock down your foes all the time, so that's an extra 10% damage on your burst, I would say. Superior Sigil of Perception is there because I think stacking sigils are just quite strong in World versus World. It's not that hard to survive, especially on a mobile warrior, which you are because you have Greatsword and reduced cooldown. So Sigil of Perception allows your crit chance to be very high when you enter a battle. I mean, you can see I have no stacks right now, and the crit chance is already at 49%. This will go up to 60%, actually 61 on the hammer because it's ascended. But let's say 60% crit chance. That's without Fury, that's without the Arms Minor trait, which boosts burst skills even further. So that's an incredibly high crit chance. Looking at the trinkets, Zerk Amulet and Zerk back gear, the ring is Zerk of Aride's Knight's ring, but with added precision. Cavalier ring, a Knight's accessory, and a Soldier's accessory. This is just how I mixed and matched my trinkets and gear to get the stats that I want. Looking at the stats, you have 2400 power, which goes up to 2500 when you stack up the guard bonus. You have 3070 armor. This is actually more well closer to 2800 because because of the minor trade in defense, obviously, but also the Doliac Signet. It gives you 180 toughness. So when you use it, it goes on cooldown. The toughness is taken away, so you will always be sitting at around a 2800 armor, which is, I would say, the sweet spot if you want to have a little bit of extra survivability in outnumbered fights. Then the vitality is at 90.3. KHP. It's actually like 20.5 with a little bit of world versus world bonuses, and obviously this will go up to 23k with the guard stacks. Then the crit chance. This is probably the staple of the build, the selling point. It's 49% base, and like I just said, with Sigil of Perception, it goes up to 60%. 80% with Fury, of which you get a lot. So that's a very, very high crit chance. And 200% critical damage, which is quite high. I mean, you can go up to like 212 if you take all Zerk. I don't think that's worth it. That 12% of critical damage. I mean, it adds damage, sure, but I just think the trade-off, the 12% of critical damage versus this amount of toughness and a little bit of extra vitality is definitely worth it. Then you have pretty much 200 condition damage from arms, a little bit of healing power from defense, but well, these are the general stats for this critical hammer build. When you look at skills, obviously healing signet, balanced stance, and Zerker stance are staples. You cannot remove these. You absolutely need both of them. Balance stance is just really good to get stability, to stomp people, and Zerker stance. Yeah, any condition spec will probably overpower you purely with conditions. Cleansing Ire helps, but Cleansing Ire helps after Zerk stance runs out. So don't just go in and pop it straight away, but try and time it when they are going to condition bomb you, and your Cleansing Ire should be sufficient to mop up any leftover conditions after Zerk stance runs out. The third utility skill, like I said, I use Doyak Signet most of the time. It adds toughness, and you also get a second source of stability, which in outnumbered fights for Warrior is well, incredibly important. You're going to need to stomp somebody sometime, and if you already use Balance Stance, for instance, you're fighting another Hammer Warrior and something else, then you're probably going to use Balance Stance just to survive, just to be able to down one of the opponents. So Doyak Signet can be there to mitigate damage until you need it to get a stomp. That's usually what I use it for. For the elite, you're gonna wanna use Signet of Rage. This gets you 25 seconds of Fury every minute, and along with Furious Reaction, and of course the burst skill from Greatsword, Arsing Slice, you can pretty much get a 100% uptime on Fury, which is one of the things that this build leans on. Yeah, Signet of Rage for the win on this one. As for food, that's the only thing we didn't talk about yet. Food I use is the Omnimary Ghost, which gives you 70 precision and a 66% chance to steal life on critical. This steals like 325 health and gives it straight back to you. So it adds DPS and it also adds a layer of survivability. You have a very high crit chance. I mean, you're going to be sitting at 80% crit chance ideally with Fury. So 4 out of 5 attacks are going to crit. And out of those 4 attacks, 3 are probably going to steal life on average. You know, I mean, the math is not really solid here, but you're going to steal a lot of life with this food. It does have an internal cooldown, so it's not as good as it would be without a cooldown, obviously, but I think the internal cooldown is only like 1 second, so you're gonna be stealing a lot of life with this. It also goes well with our precision-oriented build, and well, that's just all I have to say about that. Then the superior sharpening stone, this just adds a lot of power. On a side note, if you are dueling or you are sure that you're going to fight a lot of condition heavy specs, then you can switch out the Omnimary Ghost for bowls of poultry and leek soup, the minus condition duration food. This is actually probably a bit stronger against condition specs, minus 36 or minus 40% condition if you have a lot of money to buy food. Is just insane. This food can definitely help in that department. So this is a food worth using. The rest of the video is going to be me roaming a little bit. It's going to be some outnumbered fighting, just small skirmishes on the critical hammer build. I hope you guys have maybe learned something, like the build, like the vid, subscribe if you want to see more. And well, I wish you guys happy roaming and see you on the next video.
Just another wonderful dancing here. I am not a queen, you are not a king. Just another wonderful dancing. Lights falling down to me makes me breathe in deep. Just another wonderful dancing here. I am not a queen, you are not a king. Just another wonderful dancing. Makes me breathe in deep. Just another wonderful dancing here. I am not a queen, you are not a king. Just another wonderful dancing.